Here's the thing about Dragon's Dogma 2. Traversal. This game has the most entertaining open world I've been in a long time. I'm going to do something I've never really done before, which is I'm going to talk about a video game. And I'm going to do that without really having done any writing first, which I consider myself a writer first and foremost, so I'm already very uncomfortable. But I have my safety blanket here of some notes about a video game entitled Dragon's Dogma 2. I've been playing a lot of Dragon's Dogma 2. I've played, I believe, between 25 and 30 hours of Dragon's Dogma 2 over the last few days. And I really, really want to talk about this video game because it's kind of incredible. Now, I've played Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. I believe Dragon's Dogma was originally, if I remember correctly, it was an Xbox 360 era RPG, and it got an expansion, or what we would now call downloadable content, called Dark Arisen that did stuff to it. I don't know. But the version that I purchased on Steam and played many years after it had come out was the full package of both of those things. I think I played it for about 7 hours, and I tried again and only made it like a couple of hours in at some point in the last couple of years. It never clicked with me. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen never clicked with me. It didn't feel good to play, which is a very difficult thing to talk about when you're talking about video games, but it's also sort of necessary. What I mean by feel is I felt that the control was kind of sluggish in a way that I think Souls games are kind of sluggish. And in a Souls game, it's sort of purposeful, and you can feel that the entire world is built around it, and I didn't feel that way in Dragon's Dogma. Now, I'm not going to say that game wasn't designed around slow movement or whatever, or rather, that game wasn't designed around, how should I put this? Kind of a less than desirably responsive player character. I did it! That seems very diplomatic in a way where I almost said nothing. Dragon's Dogma 2 does not have that problem. Dragon's Dogma 2 is snappy. Dragon's Dogma 2 has great overworld movement. Here's the thing about Dragon's Dogma 2. Traversal. This game has the most entertaining open world I've been in a long time. I know that we are living in an era where every other game has an open world portion, at the very least. Most of them don't do it very well. Most of them take and here, even in this sort of unscripted, unprompted video, I'm going to make fun of Assassin's Creed Valhalla for being empty and vapid and terrible. And I put 80 hours into it before I could fucking finish it, out of spite. Games like that pepper the map with things to do. It's the Ubisoft meme, right? Ubisoft meme, however the hell you're supposed to say it. A game like Valhalla has crap all over the place that you have to go do, or can choose to go do, I guess I should say. Like, oh, you're privileged enough to go do it, whatever. But most of it is very boring. It's boring. It's boring to go around a map and put little check marks on it. And I say that as someone with a very specific brain sickness where I want to get all of the check marks on the map. I've played multiple games that way. I've ruined my experience with games that way. Over the holiday season, I played 2 open world games sort of back to back. I played Far Cry 4 and Cyberpunk 2077. Far Cry 4 I had played before but not finished. Cyberpunk 2077 I had played all the way through about, let's say, 1.5 times. I like that game a lot. But it has the same problem as an Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It has the same problem as I don't know, let's just pick a random RPG from the last few years without any pointed critical. It's Starfield that I'm thinking about. Dragon's Dogma 2 has made me very upset about Starfield because I was a Starfield apologist for a while. My first 25, 30 hours with Starfield I really enjoyed, and then everything caught up to me, and by the time I finished the main quest, and by extension what I wanted to do in the world of Starfield, I had played it for about 50 to 60 hours, I think. So by that point, much like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I kind of finished it out of spite and I was frustrated, and I didn't want to play it again, and I put that game down and haven't booted it since. I think I uninstalled it, even, which is... Whew, that's very telling, because I have, like, fucking Oblivion installed on my PC, so that I can jump into a modded playthrough at the drop of a hat. Dragon's Dogma 2. Traversal. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about traversal in Dragon's Dogma 2. Dragon's Dogma 2 has a dense open world. It is very populated, mostly by enemies, but also by environmental puzzles. Places where your pawns will point and go, "Oh, yonder treasure chest, prithee, arisen, let us go forth and open its bounties," or whatever. They all talk like it's fake Shakespeare language in Dragon's Dogma, and I kind of love it. You can't climb a wall. It's not a Breath of the Wild. It's not a Genshin Impact. And I kind of like that about it. I like that there is stamina management, but it's much more... Well, I mean, it kind of borrows its stamina management from a Souls game as well. Honestly, I think that Dragon's Dogma is sort of my ideal Souls game, which is it's not. It borrows some of the mechanics from a Souls game, but not all of them. It also doesn't borrow the design philosophy, especially in regards to difficulty. Dragon's Dogma 2's difficulty kind of comes from it being sort of obtuse. A lot of its difficulty comes from the fact that, like, fast travel is locked to a consumable. But I have found that I get enough of them that I'm making sort of informed decisions, we'll say, about when to and when not to fast travel. I like that. I think that putting it behind a consumable sort of says something bad to my brain in the same way that, like, Kingdom Come Deliverance putting saving behind a consumable did something bad to my brain. The difference there is that in Dragon's Dogma 2, I managed to stick with it without changing it or being able to change it or whatever long enough that I have adjusted to it. In Kingdom Come, I didn't want to do that. In Dragon's Dogma 2, I didn't want to do it, but I did it because I kind of had to. And I'm glad I did, because what I learned is that the world is designed in such a way that when you are traveling between destinations, between, like, say, a town and the main city, or a main city, there are a couple of larger hubs, there's always combat, there's always monsters, and the bigger monsters that are sort of more of an ideal to fight move around the map. I don't know if they spawn in or if they're moving all the time or whatever, but I've had some emergent gameplay moments in Dragon's Dogma 2 that I think are just absolutely brilliant in a way where they almost feel scripted, but they're very clearly not. For example, I'm very much going to avoid spoilers in this, you know, and I'm going to say up front that, you know, I haven't finished the game. Again, I've played it for 25, 30 hours. As a point of reference, like I said before, that's how much I enjoyed Starfield before I didn't enjoy Starfield anymore, so there is a chance that I make this and then Dragon's Dogma 2 really shits the bed for me, or I hit the wall on Dragon's Dogma 2 and I don't like it anymore. But in the same way that I do have to give Starfield credit for giving me 25 to 30 hours of enjoyment, I have to give Dragon's Dogma 2 credit for giving me 25 to 30 hours of enjoyment. So, all that said, there are 2 countries in the world of Dragon's Dogma 2 that are bordering. They are Vermund and Batal. At one point, you will go to Batal. Spoilers. You will go to Batal. It's in the game. You will go there. There is a main road that leads to, I think, from the way that an NPC described it to me, it kind of gave me the impression there would be a checkpoint, and I would have to present a document that I got to get through the checkpoint. And perhaps if I had gone earlier down that road, I wouldn't have been able to go into Batal. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not starting a new game to find out, because it kind of seems like it's a pain in the ass to do that, and I might lose my character, and I'm not doing that. So I don't know. I was following the main road toward the quest marker, and ahead of me, there was a motherfucking dragon on the road, just hanging out, just walking, just taking a little stroll, okay? I had run into a dragon once before in this playthrough, and needless to say, it completely destroyed me and everything I had ever believed in and everyone who had ever believed in me. We all died simultaneously. It was the Dragon's Dogma world equivalent of the atom bomb being dropped on me. I was helpless. So I see this dragon, and I think, well, I don't like what that young man is up to. I don't like, he's walking around with a certain air about him, and I'm going to avoid it. So I notice that there is a path off to my left. I take the path off to my left. I have no idea if it will reunite with the main path. I have no idea if it'll even really end up going in the direction I need to be going, but it's forward where the dragon is, left down the side path, or turn around and go a different direction. I know I don't want to turn around because I want to keep progressing the plot, so I got to go to Batal. So I go left. I end up fighting my way through a whole-ass cave system, right? And at the end of the cave system is a big rock monster who has, you know, like a bunch of weak points around his body, and he's not susceptible to just regular damage in the way most enemies are because he's made of fucking rocks. So I can't just shoot him with my bow and it do much. And it was a hard fight, but it was a winnable fight in a way that the fight with the dragon was not. And I got through it. I think I did die and have to use a wake stone, but I did get through the fight. I finished the fight. I became John Halo and I finished the fight. I then come out of the cave and I have this just absolutely breathtaking view of a coast. Just ocean with like some land in the distance. I'm on a high cliff. It's like fucking Scotland when I get outside of this cave system. Which, you know, to me, that speaks to, it's like coming home. So there's something inside of my lizard brain that goes, ooh, cliffs and white waves and ooh, this feels good. I belong in the Highlands, where it's cold and all of us don't talk about our feelings. I continue along the coastline and I find a little village, or not a little village. I find a couple of buildings with like some bandits in them. Wipe those guys out. Real easy after fighting the rock monster. I'm like, shoot those guys in the head. Bang, bang, bang. I'm done. Colonel Sanders. My character is modeled after Colonel Sanders. Fellow Kentuckian. Colonel Sanders. I have a weird fascination with Colonel Sanders. And I love being Colonel Sanders in fantasy worlds. Fun fact about me. I keep traversing up the coast and I find my way to the capital city of Batal, which is where I was supposed to go. I am sitting there and I realize that this was not the path that I was supposed to take because I did not have to use the documentation I was given by the NPC at any point. I never ran into anybody who asked me for documentation. I never had to present anything. I never had to answer any questions. I never had to go through an immigration process or whatever the fuck you have to do if you go through the main path, if you didn't have a dragon in the way, or if you did and you were able to fight it and win. And that, I think, is what's amazing about Dragon's Dogma 2, is that, you know, in the same way that basically since the first time I played Oblivion, I've been chasing the high of emergent narrative moments. And so is Bethesda in a lot of ways. They've been chasing it longer than that, but, you know, again, different discussion, different day. Like, most of the time, games don't give it to me, or it gives it to me in like a spoon-fed dosage. Like, for example, when I said I'd played Far Cry 4 and Cyberpunk 2077 back-to-back over the holidays, I can't tell you anything really cool that happened in either of those playthroughs, with like one exception. In Far Cry 4, at one point, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, and again, it's been about 3 months, so please forgive me, I believe at one point I was in one of those radio towers you have to climb, and there were a couple of the, like, on your side guerrillas who were also guerrilla war fighters, not jungle gorillas, in the bottom of the tower. And, you know, it's a Ubisoft tower. You have to climb the thing and click on something, and then it reveals more of your map and blah, blah, blah. You've done it. You've done it at some point in some game somewhere. And I remember that as I got onto, like, the first floor, there were like 2 honey badgers, because that was around the time that, you know, Honey Badger Don't Give a Fuck came out. It was like a couple years after that when Far Cry 4 was like, let's go in on honey badgers. Honey badgers exist. And what is Karat based on? I guess sort of like Tibetan, sort of the Tibet-ish area of the world. It's not a one-to-one with Tibet, of course, but that's clearly where a lot of the inspiration came from. And a couple of them came in there and killed the NPCs, and I just sort of watched it happen. And I was like, damn, those guys take a lot of bullets to kill, too. They're kind of bullet sponges, which is why it was so memey, and that's why it's fun. And that's like the only thing I can tell you about from my entire playthrough of Far Cry 4. Also, the story of Far Cry 4 kind of sucks. Ta-da! Dragon's Dogma 2 has presented me with multiple of these moments. Now, the most outstanding to me is this thing where I had to go on a different route because Dragon... Threat, Dragon bad. Dragon has some sort of dogma. I don't know what that dragon believes in, but I do know that part of it seems to be murdering me, so I would prefer not to subscribe to the Dragon's Dogma. Yeah, and I mean, there's been some little things, like I like the amount of dialogue. Well, actually, let me rephrase this. I like the variance of the dialogue that the pawns have. I do not like the amount of the dialogue the pawns have. The pawns need to shut the fuck up a little bit. I think they talk way too much. Maybe there's a setting. I should go check after this. Maybe there's a setting to like turn that down, like combat barks a little bit. I need them because I've gotten to the point where I've kept a similar party for several levels. It's getting tiresome. It's getting really tiresome at 25 to 30 hours in. It's getting really tiresome. But the shortcomings of the game, like it's very obtuse in a way where you can tell it's a game that's Japanese that's been translated into English, and it feels like there's a bit of a language barrier in the way.
To look at me now. I'll thank you to keep your distance.
And I think it uses that to its advantage. I think Souls games also use that to its advantage, except that Souls games have less to translate because more of the story is like lore in the background and implied and hidden in item descriptions and blah, blah, blah. Dragon's Dogma 2 is more in your face with that stuff, but it still feels like there's a bit of a disconnect. I'm gonna chalk that up to a language barrier. I think there's still a bit of a language barrier, but I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it heightens the experience. If you've ever traveled abroad and you've not known the language of the country you're in, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about, where it's like you can sort of communicate with most people, but not everybody. Sometimes people just say shit that doesn't really make any sense to you, and you also realize that some of the shit you're saying doesn't make any sense to them, and you have to just sort of like wing it and be friendly and figure it out, and it's a fun dance. It's a fun traveler's dance you have to do if you're like me and not so educated that you have the luxury of knowing many languages. Traversal. That's the thing. That's the thing about Dragon's Dogma 2. That's the thing that I think we'll talk about Dragon's Dogma 2 for a while concerning. I think that if Dragon's Dogma 2 proves to be successful and influential in any way, then that will be the thing that I hope people take from Dragon's Dogma 2. Please God, I hope that's the lesson we learn from Dragon's Dogma 2 is these open worlds, let's make them a little more dense. If we're going to have them, maybe we can make them smaller, because I don't think Dragon's Dogma 2 has the biggest open world. It seems pretty big to me, but I am sure it is much smaller than like The Witcher or Skyrim or whatever. I played some Dragon Age Inquisition not that long ago, and a little bit of Mass Effect Andromeda, and like if you patched all those maps together, it would definitely be smaller than that. But also, you know, that's a different gameplay philosophy, and those games are, especially Andromeda, are definitely designed around the idea of having empty space to traverse and that being part of it. At least it's not the whole thing, unlike some games. Starfield, still looking at you, Starfield. I bought that stupid watch. I bought that stupid fucking watch, and all of you can make fun of me for it, and I deserve it. I deserve it. I should have known better, but I wanted the dumb watch, and I believed. I bought the hype, and I shouldn't have. That's an okay thing to make fun of me for, among other things. Yeah, Dragon's Dogma 2. I think it's a great game at 25 to 30 hours in. I think it's a great video game. I'm having a great time with it, and I'm honestly probably going to go play it right now. Play some more right now. I do have to collect some footage because I've not been recording it at all. It's been just for me, so I'm going to have to record some shit to make this video. And tell me if you like this format. Do you like this sort of, not quite a podcast, more of a radio vibe? I'm sitting in my little booth that I've made for myself out of cheap acoustic foam and some clothes and a closet. I figured that out. Tell me if you like this. Please, let me know in the comments if this is something you would like more of or would not like more of. I need feedback. Anyway, if you have Dragon's Dogma 2, enjoy Dragon's Dogma 2. If you don't, consider it. And if you don't want to play it or it's not your kind of game, that's fine too. I'm definitely an RPG guy, so it really checks a lot of boxes for me. And yeah. Let's go play some video games, people. All right.